Hey, yeah, it's good to see you in, Sir James. James is Caitlin's wonderful co-host on Caitlin's Magical Corner. Um, Great channel. I love that. I got to put you on my recommended channels list, Caitlin. I'm often over there. I make about 90% of her streams. I was a little late today, and they were talking about Ringo Starr. We'll be talking a little bit about Ringo Starr tonight. Can't help it. Okay. Um, and it's so good. I know James, he is connected to other things at this particular time. And James, I appreciate the energy of you showing up to see my stream. And I think you're going to enjoy it tonight because I think it's going to be quite educational. And there was no way to put on a thumbnail what I wanted to cover tonight. So, first of all, let me explain something. We're going to be talking about, and I'll be referring to a interview that he did, an article where he was interviewed, and he said basically that he was lied to by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we're going to be talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as we go in and out tonight. So that's part of the thread. But more than the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we're going to be talking about the Beatles, and we're going to be talking about the Beatles as seen through the breakup and as seen through Paul McCartney's eyes, perhaps, and because there was a big breakup of fanship once the Beatles broke up. There were a lot of Beatle fans who liked Paul with the Beatles, but they preferred John Lennon and his albums, his output, and would collect his stuff, but not Paul's, and maybe some of George's and some of Ringo's, And then you have Beatle fans who will collect anything from any one of them, and I'm, of course, talking about their solo albums, okay? And I'm not one of those fans, all right? But I'll compare my Beatle fanship to any freaking Beatle fan out there alive, okay? And they are my number one band, and I do have to kind of say this before I get going. And Kimberly, who is my producer,
I'm here.
how you doing tonight, darling?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I had one of you ask me in the comments, a little bit disrespectful, so I removed the comments. Who's that girl that keeps interrupting you?
Oh, no.
That girl is my wife, my producer, and my off-camera co-host. So she's not interrupting me, all right? She's my connection to you guys because I got a planned set of stuff to cover tonight. And that's how we do it here on the Tribal Forum. Tonight is Tribal Forum number 115, and I've got a ton of brand new subscribers.
Oh my goodness, hon.
Oh goodness gracious.
Yeah, it's Be Still VX again.
Ooh, Gear Jam to the rescue with a $5 super
thanks. Thank you, Bees. That's so nice.
All you new viewers who are new subscribers or just new viewers to the stream, I always take super thanks and will shut down in order to read their comment if it fits into what we're talking about. I kind of will go off that comment. It's a way to include the tribe, and I'm not in any hurry on Wednesday nights like I am on Sunday because I have to get wrapped up no later. I mean, if an emergency happened, I could stream 90 minutes on Sunday, right? I've never had to go that long. Last Sunday, I went a little over not an hour and 20 minutes, okay? To deliver what I wanted to talk about. Tonight can be seen as a sort of part two to what I was talking about, but you don't have to have seen that stream to understand where I'm coming from. We're going to take this from the word go, this article I'm talking about, and then we're going to cover not only that, we're going to go back in time. We're going to cover when this whole thing started, the seed that caused the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. No, it wasn't the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that lied to Paul. It was Jann Wenner. And before we read Gear Jam's message here, I do want to say this. All right, for those of you who aren't familiar with that name, Jann Wenner is the former chief editor in total control of Rolling Stone magazine back in the day. I was a fan of that magazine back in the day and thought I liked him back in the day. Okay? And he is the former CEO of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he is also a staunch John Lennon fan, and I mean fan with capital F-A-N-A, T-I-C, fanatic. I hope I spelled that right. He's got a real skewered view about the Beatles and how they broke up and everything else, folks. And that's going to be part of what we're going to be talking about tonight. And then we're going to look at Paul McCartney in general, his legacy, and I want to cap off by saying, where is he? Especially when you compare him, and I'm talking about the Beatles' post-Beatles solo work, to the other Beatles. Some of you have already brought in some statistics that aren't too far off the statistics I have when I make my case tonight. And it's all based on that, folks, okay? And I did want to say that this. I've got to tell you, I really have enjoyed our last 2 streams prior to this. I got to tell you, even more so. I enjoy doing this all the time. But I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed your input. I've been able to get over and get regular videos done. I even supplied, it was getting long in the tooth over on my member side, and I just dropped 2 brand new videos there, hours apart, right? So when I feel all caught up, and I have been lately, and I stream, I'm a little more mellow, and especially on Wednesdays, I can just sit in and talk about what I want to talk about. So keep that in mind, but I do need to take care of some channel business, and we'll start off, first of all, baby, could you read Gear Jam's comment
I sure
tonight?
can read it. Yeah, Gear Jam says, a tap of a cymbal off of Ringo's drum set says more than all the so-called music we have that have been making our ears bleed today. God bless the old guard. Amen, amen, Beast.
Yeah.
Well said.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, Gear Jam, because, and thank you for that $5 super thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Beast.
You guys keep us alive. I make no bones about that. We have,
my goodness.
Studio costs and...
it's Beast again.
Oh, my goodness.
Beast.
All right,
You're
well, let's...
a roll.
A $2 super
Thank
thing.
you, Beast.
This is what we call swinging the deuce hammer.
He says, it's deuce is wild, Michael, though Gear Jam
sorry.
rocks.
Yep, yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
All right, Deuce, so sorry.
Woohoo, Deuce.
I've got a whole list of you, and I was going on memory tonight, and I should have looked that up just to double check. Deuce, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you're right, Gear Jam rocks. I love Gear Jam, but you as well. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much, and your support. We were talking about this in past streams and everything, and like I said, I'm going to give some time for people to trickle on in, and then we're going to kick the ass out of this story. 3-part story tonight, and keep in mind, because see, I'll get people coming in late into the stream, and there will be some criticisms of not only Beatles, Paul, everybody, but keep in mind the Beatles are the greatest band that ever existed. They changed music. They are on the level of Mozart. They are on the level of Bach, Tchaikovsky, name them all. They're the greatest musical happening of the 20th century, in my opinion. That's how high I look at these people, and on several levels. And when you talk about Ringo, I said we would be talking about Ringo today. I had some critical things to say, and I'm so glad James is in the chat because they're really excited over on Caitlin's Corner for Ringo's new album coming out, working with the same producer and co-writer, I would imagine, or certainly arranger after his very successful country album. And I've already done my assessment of that album, and I've said it in the past. Very proficiently done. And that's about the best thing I can say about the album. I'm not a country western fan, and I haven't, like I said, I'm not one of those Beatle fans that just buys Beatle solo albums, because I have one Ringo album, and Royce gifted that to me, and I'm grateful I have it, right? I plan on getting the Ringo album, and I loved some of Ringo's first hits. I mean, out the gate, he was the most successful Beatle as far as hits at a certain time. He had the most hits than all of the former Beatles at the very beginning. And you're bringing up a tap of a cymbal, and I've brought that up many times, folks. Ringo Starr often gets the shaft on drummers' lists, and we're going to be doing, matter of fact, I'm surprised I don't have it out by now, a set of polls that will choose 20 drummers to be inducted. These are the nominees, this set of polls, and you will decide. 2 winners in every group will be included into the Mount Rock Olympus Hall of Fame that you've helped me create here, with over 130 inductees already. And these will go on the list in the fall when we do our normal induction process. And so this year, the Mount Rock Olympus Hall of Fame, the only Hall of Fame that's worth its salt at all. And you know why? Because you guys put it together. I was the bookkeeper. I was the auditor. I was the 2 + 2 = 4 guy in the whole process. You guys put this together. You kept bugging me to do it, and I eventually took it on. And I'm very proud of what we've accomplished so far on the channel regarding that. Okay? So I can guarantee you Ringo Starr will be one of those nominees, and if it was up to me, but it's not, you guys will vote. Ringo Starr is in the top 10 drummers of rock and roll. And you're going, the devil, you say, Michael? Why, the drummers I could name right now. And when you start number 1, in my opinion, with Bonzo, right? You've got at least one drummer from Yes. I'd put Stuart Copeland in there in the top 10. See, it's not just chops, it's feel, it's what they brought into rock and roll for me. And Ringo has a style that is partly developed by his diminutive size. He has to work harder to get around. And here's another thing. He's left-handed, just like Paul McCartney. 2 left-handed Beatles, 2 right-handed Beatles. A lot of weird stuff with the Beatles, right, guys? So, but his drum set's set up right-handed. He plays right-handed drums as a left-handed man. And the reason is there were no drum clinics going along. He was a fan of rock groups. He bought their albums, just like the other kids that would become the Beatles, right? And he looked at pictures. And 90% of anybody he'd go see live was probably going to be a right-handed drummer anyway. And even if they were left-handed, probably for the same reason that Ringo chose to play his drums right-handed, is They saw the pictures on the albums. Oh, that's how you set up a drum set. It didn't even come to his mind to even think about. Uh, you know, oh, well, since I'm left-handed, maybe I ought to do it in the opposite direction. Just didn't come to his mind. So he developed a style based on that, plus his own solid. The Beatles would say, you know, back in those days, these days in the studio, folks, people put in click tracks, all right, unerring click tracks. And then the drummer may come in with the bass player and they'll lay down the rhythm section. Or maybe just once, one at a time. All right, almost that Sgt. Pepper process. Today it's Ringo's drums, right? Well, they didn't have that back in the day. And Paul would later call Ringo the human metronome. He just had a dead on sense of timing. That's a secret weapon for any band. Back in those days, they can't rely on a click track, live or Memorex, right? So that's my answer to you regarding that. I did also want to give a shout out to all the fine folks who gave us a shout out on our last stream. I always do that real quick. And there were 4 of you, and I so appreciate these wonderful super thanks. Let me get up here.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's Storm Cop again. Oh, Storm
Cop's in?
Is he in? He sent 5 gift memberships.
Oh my
again.
goodness.
Storm Cop, you are epic. Thank
Oh
you
my goodness.
so much.
He just did that,
Wow,
did
he did.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Storm Cop.
Cop is such a supporter. He's
Yeah.
amazing. He just got back with his wife from a cruise.
Yep.
So
Anniversary.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's Divining Dragon's birthday.
I know.
Happy
I've said
birthday,
happy birthday in
Divining
several
Dragon.
guises to Christian. And I saw just before I got up, see, we've got road work going on outside. It sounds like it's quieted down now. But I had to do special sound checks and everything before getting up. That's why I was a little later than even my late intro. And I appreciate you guys bearing with me. But what Storm Cop just did, I just want to bring this up. That's like a $35 super thanks. Storm Cop, that is amazing. And I notice a lot of his energies is going in to, he's a real supporter of membership, channel membership. Now, I want to make it clear to any new viewers, because I know I got a lot of you out there, that I still maintain the same amount of regular videos that I always have. And then when I started streaming, maybe just before I started streaming, I was getting a lot of input from you guys that you would support me if I did a members only, and I did extra work to maintain that portion of the channel. In other words, I wasn't going to do that until I could put my energy into that. And some of you were very long suffering with me, and Storm Cop has just added so many. We've got to be well over 50 to 60 current members. And of course, some of those are new. They won't up. It'll fluctuate, right? But what I'm trying to get over there is, yeah, this is worth a membership. I try to give you something. We're talking about the Beatles tonight. Do you know that was their motto? You got to give them bang for the buck. That's why they put out so many of their albums with 14 cuts, not 12, like the American albums and everything. Bang for the buck. 2 albums a year. 4 singles a year, which was 8 additional songs, side A, side B, right? And that's kind of my motto too. On the bottom line is, I still do my free videos. They're out there all the time. Those are the main focus of the channel. And another thing, I was criticized for, well, you've only got so many new videos out. And I said, I've always put out 1 to 3 videos a week. Right now, I think it may have clicked over to day 8, but I had 3 out in the last 7 days, but certainly 2 in the last 3 days, 4 days, something like that. So that's always been maintained. And on top of that, I've added 2 times that I've, gone up here a week and stream live. And that's just as free as my regular videos. So I've actually added my work to the regular channel when you think of it like that. And then I'm putting double time into this other aspect of the channel. So I appreciate that. Like I said, a $35 super thanks. If you get the offer, grab that for 1 month at least, okay? For 1 month at least, you become a tribal elder. All right, now there's another tier there where you become a tribal chieftain. These folks are supporting the channel live or in another way, and I always try to give shout outs. And that's why I'm going to give a shout out here again to the people from last stream. Those who give tonight will get a shout out on my next stream on Sunday. So that's how it works. And my good buddy, I saw Royce in the comments earlier. It's good to see you out there, brother. Like I said, I had a wonderful last 3 streams. I got to tell you, Wednesday, Sunday, and then Sunday on Royce's stream was so wonderful. God, that like I said, I feel more myself if I'm caught up on other things. If I got a lot of demons, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and it's not exactly what I want to talk about, then that could become almost a chore to do. And I feel like, I've been in my groove here for a while. And of course, Royce is one of the people that's responsible for teaching me my groove by even having, I was streaming as a co-host over there for a good 3 years before I started streaming. Well, 2.5, 2 years anyway. I think we're on year 4 now. And I started this a little over a year ago. So do the math. But, we talked about Tina Turner over there. Right after I got through talking about, we were comparing Paul McCartney's latest film, documentary, to that of the Wingspan film. And all of that will fit into a little bit tonight. But he gave us a $10 super thanks. Storm Cop gave us $35 by buying 5 more memberships. So if you get those, get them. They're free. Hit them up and see what's going on the members side. Michael Boswell swung the deuce hammer for us with a $2 super thanks, and Storm Cop came in later and gave a $20 super thanks. I want to thank each and every one of you. By the way, the channel hit 47,300. As of this morning, we had 302. We are now at 47,293 at last look. And I checked all of my videos and everything. We should be closer to 4315 right now. So I've talked about that. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. Check to see. I'm getting comments from you all the time. Check to see if you're still subscribed, because people are telling me they're being unsubscribed and they're not doing it. It's just the YouTube algorithm or whatever has unsubscribed them. This has happened time and time again. And every time I start seeing this happen again, I'll often bring it up on my streams, folks. Okay, so check that, and also check to see if your notifications are still turned on, because I still get messages from you folks. Who was it? The last one, Rockin' Robin, was telling me I didn't get notified of the last stream. And I think that was last Wednesday's stream. That's just one comment that came to my mind. Okay, I'm getting this all the time from you folks. So keep that in mind as we, go on to further streams and everything. And a big welcome to everybody else. All right, so that gets us to the idea of this. What would I call it? I guess article. And where did my notes on the subject go? Am I in the wrong one here? Let's find out. Am I even on the right one? Yeah, it should be.
Get with the program, huh?
I know.
Hey, Che Tachinga says, you have one very informative, interesting channel. Lifelong Beatles fan here from Escondido, California.
Whoa, welcome.
Woohoo, California.
Welcome. And read their name again?
Che Tachinga.
Che Tachinga, I like that.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Welcome, Che.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big Beatles fan from way back. Read books on the Beatles. up until just quite recent books, and even some of those I've read. I've got a library of them, a digital library of them these days, because of limited space. But all the books that I have found on him, both flattering and unflattering, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. You know, there is the Macca McCartney. You know, a nickname that Jann Wenner gave him. But a lot of his critics like to use that term when they're saying how unreasonable he can be, how he has to get his way, how insincere. There's lots of people that will point fingers toward Paul McCartney, and I'm not saying that Paul McCartney is thoroughly innocent in all of that. Okay? But I think generally speaking, we get a pretty honest Paul McCartney from what I've seen of his career. I have no trouble liking the man, all right? I know not everything out of his mouth is, you know, a lot of it is what is politically safe to say. A lot, you know, like any man, he's got his foibles. But so do other Beatles, all right? And you know what happened? This all started... Well, this all started in 1970. That's the beginning. It exacerbated in 1980, and we got to the point where Paul McCartney was just openly being disenfranchised all over the place. In articles, you know, especially after John Lennon was murdered. And once again, I will say this, because I know I got new people coming in. You're talking to a major Beatle fan. Up until the point that John Lennon died, I collected John Lennon and Paul McCartney solo albums side by side. I didn't compare them too much. I just bought them and I listened to them and I loved them. All right? So keep that in mind. But once John died, a lot of articles, and Jann Wenner, again, keep in mind who I'm talking about, Rolling Stone magazine editor and CEO of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? Jann Wenner has been there from the very beginning of this whole thing. And when we're talking about the other Beatles and Paul McCartney and when all of this started, he was right there. So when I'm gonna read portions of this article. Keep this in mind that Jann Wenner was there. This is talking about, I think, was it the mid 90s when most of this happened? But you got to understand, Jann Wenner was there from 1970 on. All right, like, I don't know, a corn on your toe. He was right there, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
He's not a good guy, folks. He just put out a book. I've said this before on the stream, but in case I got a different audience tonight, he put out a book that was interviewing, I think it was 4 rockers, but however many rockers, and there were no black rockers or women rockers in there. And when he was questioned why by a curious reporter, he said, black rockers and women rockers are less articulate. So keep in mind the man that we're talking about, okay? And also realize, well, we'll talk about that because I want to build my case regarding this. All right, so the article reads as following. Paul McCartney was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist in 1999, but a previously unpublished interview from 2015 reveals that he was not happy that it took that long. Journalist Joe Hagan spoke with the legendary Beatle for more than an hour on March of 2015 as he was researching Sticky Fingers, The Life and Times of Jann Wenner and Rolling Stone magazine. Got to get my hands on that book.
Yeah.
A book about the Rolling Stone founder that was released in late 2017, as he details in an introduction for the interview, which was recently published by Vanity Fair. Only a fraction of their conversation made it into Sticky Fingers. Wonder why. Though the Beatles were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988, and McCartney was a regular participant and guest for the ceremonies in early years, and more recently, he also showed up for Ringo Starr's induction in 2015 and gave a speech in 2021 when the Foo Fighters were added to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He hangs out with them and has recorded with them and has even written with them. So good on Paul. If he wants to show up, whatever, you know. Never saw the speech, folks. Never saw the speech. He notes that he was surprised when he got a phone call from Jann Wenner, who wanted him to give the speech to induct his longtime bandmate and friend, John Lennon. He initially accepted the invite and then had second thoughts. All right, there's the Maca for you. Realizing that he himself wasn't going to be part of the 1994 class of inductees for his own solo work. And there is an argument as to why Paul wouldn't go first if you're talking about success, hit records and all of that. So you can at least see he's going, well, wait a minute. We're talking about a time period I was quite prolific in. John was off the map for 5 years. What up, Willis? Right? So I got back to him and said, well, wait a minute. What about me? Maybe I'll do John and then maybe I should go in? McCartney recalled in the interview. It was like, oh no, we can't do that. In all my dealings with him, and again, he's talking about Jann. In all my dealings with him, it's never up to Jann. It's up to these other people down the corridor somewhere. Down the corridor. Oh, it's not up to me, Paul. It's up to those guys. He happens to have owner, editor on his door, but they're responsible for things. Now, keep in mind, Paul doesn't bring this up, but I have in many past streams. Those people that he's talking about right now, folks, those people down the corridor are all inputted directly, and most of them to this very day, by Jann Wenner himself. So if Paul had bothered to go down the corridor to talk to these people, they would have said, well, we can't do that. And they would have had the same lame excuse as Jann, and they would have passed the buck, right? So what Wenner promised instead was that McCartney would have his own moment and be inducted in 1995. I said, okay, and I bought the deal. Next year came around, nothing happened. So it was like, can you ring Jann? What's going on? I don't appear to be in it. Fucking bastards. Quote, though Wenner has said he didn't remember making that deal with McCartney, most liars don't, it was the latest thread in what he found to be a complicated web involving the publisher who he had always perceived to be more on Lennon's side. Okay? I think that's enough of that article. I want to just go back to free-form thought here. So, think about it. They had a deal. I wasn't aware of this. This is the first time I've heard that him and Jann Wenner actually had a deal. And I have no trouble with John Lennon being inducted the year before, just based on, well, it was John's group to begin with. And even though there was a time period where Paul kind of ran things, even during those years, John would have still been considered the leader of the group amongst the four of them. You know, no matter how much Paul worked to get his way, and he did, no matter how much Paul had to lead later on, and he did, most of the time, the band was John's. He's the guy that started it, and then they became John, Paul, George, and Ringo. So I had no trouble with that. If history had occurred just like that, that would have been fine, I guess. You know, a little late in the process for both Lennon. If they got inducted in 88, Lennon in 89, Paul 90. It's the way it should have gone down, but that's how big they were. Thank you. That's how giant these artists are. if you think about everything that they've done, right? So why did this come down to this? Well, first of all, you got to go back to about 1970, 71-ish, okay? You had the famous Rolling Stone interview with John Lennon, and John Lennon had tons and tons of negative things to say about Paul McCartney in that interview. It has since come out that Jann Wenner purposefully directed that interview and kept focusing on John to get back to Paul. Okay? Now, here's another thing that a lot of articles won't talk about, but it's the truth. When John and Yoko went to go see Let It Be, edited, in my opinion, to make Paul look like a bad guy, they sat in there watching it, and they loved it. And guess who was sitting in the theater with them right next door, in the next chair, chit-chatting about what a motherfucker Paul McCartney is? That's right, Jann Wenner. Right from the get-go. Now, John had a lot of sycophants hanging around him. He wasn't the only one. You know, we're going to get into this. A lot of people are focusing on the fact that Paul McCartney put out Ram, his best album, and it had too many people on it, and it said you took your lucky break. That was your first mistake. You took your lucky break and broke it into two. Too many people preaching practices, all directed at John. Way more than that song, no matter what Paul tries to rewrite in history. It was more than that one song, Paul. He tries to come off, well, yeah, and even that could have been like Paul, that's the Mecca that we have to deal with. He is his own public relations agent. He doesn't need one. He's a self-editing person, very studied in all of his responses. That does not make him a bad man, okay? But he prefers to remember the lesser of two evils sometimes, because Ram is rife with stuff directed toward John Lennon and the Beatles. Let me get over here. I took a couple of notes on this. Wanted you to see this. Right here, total top hits. Yep. Okay. All right, yeah. And then I've got a second one here. Yeah. All right, so these days, Paul is saying that basically Ram had that one thing. It was the opening track, because now we're going to, after I talk about these, then we're going to talk about John Lennon's response and those around him. Jann Wenner being one, Alan Klein being one, Phil Spector being one, or just prior to and during these sessions. Keep all of that in mind, folks. Okay? But it's not like Paul didn't start things a little bit either. They talk about too many people preaching practices. You took your lucky break and broke it into piece of cake. Okay? Piece of cake. Well, John felt especially that phrase was very inappropriate and insulting, right? I don't know how Paul can even begin to say Three Legs didn't have plenty of anti-Beatles sentiment. Matter of fact, it says here it was interpreted as a jibe at the other Beatles. My dog, he got three legs. Your dog, he got one, right? As a taunt to the Beatles. What about Dear Boy, right? Dear Boy, you're looking for a ride in a haulabout. John thought that was directly toward him. Backseat of the car, we believe that we can't be wrong. Okay? And all of this is connected, and you're going, well, wait a minute, where'd you come up with that being such a smack? Yeah, well, you got to understand the history of Paul and Linda. Linda introduced Paul while he was still in London to just get in the car and drive anywhere. You don't need a map. Paul was hesitant. She gave him that, and the whole song is backseat of my car, out there. And Paul had said in many interviews that this was Linda who got him into this whole thing, And it was his way of saying that it was him and Linda against the Beatles, or so John Lennon saw, right? The back cover features a couple of insect beetles copulating. All right, that's pretty purposeful. And Ram On, seen as a song that's based on a pseudonym that Paul used to use, Paul Ramon. Or, yeah, Paul. And at one point, I think that was actually even Raul Ramon, not Paul Ramon. So the notes got it wrong there. Okay? So it was part of that, you know, him taking on another identity separate from the Beatles. John took a lot of offense at the record, and I can remember when the record came out, I was reading, you know, John's
my goodness,
article.
Hon.
It was great. I believed it, you know. Yeah, babe.
Royce in the house, or the Four Horsemen, just came in with the super things.
Thank you, brother. Can you
my
read this?
goodness.
He gave us
I
the $10
sure can.
super thanks. Amazing.
Yes. He says, Michael, nobody covers these great Beatles stories better than you. Excellent, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, Royce.
Thank you, Royce. I hope you were out there when I was saying I really enjoyed doing your stream on Sunday.
Oh,
If anybody,
Tina Turner, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, a fantastic stream. And we went off track a couple of times, but got right back on and everything. Matter of fact, I share a small portion of that, mainly to make a point and to share something Dan the Man made for Royce, and it's over on that. If you guys grabbed one of those free memberships, it's got what I'm talking about at the end of that on one of my last two videos for members only. All right, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. All right, so now we got to go back to the one more year earlier than 1969, and we got to kind of swing it. See, I'm doing it kind of like Paul McCartney's new documentary. You know, they go forward, then they go back, and then they go forward, but a little more forward, but then they go back. And that's kind of what I'm doing here, because I want to get, see, remember, what did I start this stream on? I started it about, well, Paul McCartney says he was actually lied to, and specifically by Jann Wenner, and was being treated completely disrespectful. And what I'm saying is it's way beyond that. This is legacy hurting crap, and the sniping started with a few villains back as early as 1969. We get to 1969. We have the Winter of Discontent. We have the rooftop concert. We have the Twickenham sessions that just about busted up that band. George leaving for a period of time, lots of discontent, and yet, as Peter Jackson brought up in his time, it wasn't a total shit show. There was some good stuff produced out of some of that stuff, which gets back to what I was talking about when they released the original Let It Be film. It was edited to make Paul McCartney look like the villain. So let's go back to that time. Who got in the way? Well, right away, John Lennon wanted Alan Klein to be the Beatles' manager. Paul didn't want that. Of course, Paul's counteroffer was putting his in-laws in, which was a complete shit show of an offer, if you ask me, to begin with. Anyway, but he had a right not to like Alan Klein, just like the rest of the Beatles had a right not to like Eastman as their representative. They tried to work it out between the two lawyers for a while, giving them kind of co-power. It didn't work. They bumped. Eastman's were out. Alan Klein got said in, and Alan Klein comes into the story in 1971 when we get to this particular response by John Lennon. So Paul never liked Alan Klein, didn't want him as his manager. That's one of the reasons he sued the Beatles into receivership. He needed to put a stop to wasted money. He said Apple was about ready to go bankrupt, and he put everything into a frozen receivership. He couldn't get a hold of his money. So it wasn't just like evil old Paul going, "Wah! I collect all the funds while you." No, it wasn't like that at all. Wasn't the hateful thing that the Beatles saw. Of course, Paul was very angry. We talked about that on my last stream. First, he was depressed and fearful. Then, as he got going, and then he started celebrating a new family life, and then got angry at the response during Band on the Run. Well, where did the anger come? Anger just doesn't spout out of nowhere. Where did the anger start at the very beginning? Because one of the anger points for doing Band on the Run was not only because 2 band members quit on him at the last minute, or that he was robbed, but because of all the negative things that the Beatles had said about especially his first 2 or 3 albums, maybe 4. So he was upset with that. And so Alan Klein was entrenched. Paul had to respond to that. The Beatles break up finally because when the McCartney album came out, Paul said in a manufactured, there's Macca for you again, interview that he saw no time in the foreseeable future that he would ever be working with the Beatles, nor did he miss it. So that was his response. They broke up. Paul's next album had the "You Took Your Lucky Break," "My Dog, He Got 3 Legs," "Backseat of My Car," "We Believe We Can't Be Wrong," and other songs that John Lennon took. So now we're back up to where John Lennon, how he would be feeling, and he's about ready to record his Imagine album, right? And he's angry at Paul. "Oh yeah, you want to take this public, baby? I'll give you one." And he records "How Do You Sleep?" How do you sleep? Now, not only are the lyrics it's like a nuclear. If Paul had lobbed some missiles at him, this was a nuclear attack on Paul. At once claiming in the song, "The only thing you ever did was yesterday. Now the only thing you are is another day," or something like that. Do you know where that line came from? John didn't think up with that line.
Where?
Alan Klein.
Alan Klein, yeah.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
Not one of the top 10 villains in rock.
Yeah.
I claim he's one of the top 3.
Top 3, yeah.
Phil Spector messing with Paul's songs.
Oh, Phil Spector.
Right? And then a
Jeez.
lot of Beatle fans go, "Yeah, but in the new Peter Jackson film, you can hear Paul saying, 'Yeah, I might even put some orchestra on that.'" Yeah, he did. And then he fucking changed his mind, folks. As any songwriter has a right to do, and he didn't want Phil Spector's orchestration on there. Writing him a letter, "Don't ever do it again." So now we know where the anger that produced later the genius, wonderful album, Band on the Run, started to ignite. They sent Ringo over to Paul's house, and Paul put his fist right up in Ringo's face and said, "I'll finish you." There was an angry Paul here. There's no doubt about it. But Paul, the publicist, when I'll write it out in tune and I'll hide it behind a real beautiful melody by "That Was Your First Mistake." Ooh, what a wonderful melody. And stab in the heart all at the same time. So John wrote the song. Then to add, to add salt to the wound, he has George Harrison play the electric guitar on it and the solo that is so stinging. You've never heard a more angry and stinging and fuzz-based solo than George Harrison on "How Do You Sleep?" So then we get to that point, right? And we go back and forth. They finally, they're going to let everything go by the way over the time. But keep in mind how we got to this point, folks. Now, where we are today. And as recently as 2015, Paul saying he was just outright lied to by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which we've talked about. Jann Wenner also has had other bands in. Kiss, I was corrected on, but I did also find another thing, that it was Foreigner, who he also said something very similar, and that was basically they'll get in the day hell freezes over, or I'll be in hell shouting my fist if they get in, and all of that. So he was corrupt. And he was a man who had no respect for women rockers or black rockers. They're just not good enough for him, right? And how he put everything over. And this is why we've come to this point with Paul McCartney. But then now we have to go back to 1980. John Lennon dies, and according to everybody on the planet, it seemed that John Lennon was the true genius of the Beatles, and that the rest of them just all sat there with drumsticks and plectrums in hand, waiting for his revelations. Everybody criticized Paul McCartney for saying, drag, isn't it? When he heard about John Lennon, he was devastated, as history has been brought out. Listen to his song, Here Today. There are times when he plays it live, he goes to tears. He's not a crier, never has been. Yeah, he's got that sweet angelic face, but he's a man's man. Men don't cry. Big boys don't cry. But as he's gotten older, and when he sings that live, and what does he say to John? I love you. Even though he admits to John, and if I said that we really knew each other, what would the answer be? Because he knows that John Lennon would be just as apt to turn around and say, did we really, Paul, did we really know each other? Or were we just a bunch of kids hanging out, and we know the personas we put on as teeny boppers? And people say Paul McCartney can't write great lyrics. Okay? And so Paul has gotten this, and Jann Wenner never softened his stance. Paul had to deal with that. Once again, if you're late to the stream, I need to reiterate, I am a major Beatle fan. John Lennon and Paul McCartney were my two favorite Beatles, and John Lennon and Paul McCartney were my two favorite solo artists after the Beatles broke up. Equal Pasqua. Just dead heat even. But then after, and Paul continued to give us sometimes masterpieces, not at the rate he was before, but he's had, 40 what? 92. Well, what is it now? Good, I'm not going to do this. 90, 2010, 20, 46 years. See? I'm not totally gone, guys. 46 years to create new music, and he's done so, and he's worked with everybody under the sun. And if he has a weakness, he is a stylizer type of songwriter. He can write any genre at all, and often does. And his biggest weakness is getting a set of songs that sit well together on an album that just flows like Band on the Run or Ram, or my personal opinion, the McCartney album, or Venus and Mars. And if you're talking about that, Not a Bad Job on London Town and Back to the Egg. I don't care for Speed of Sound as much as a lot of you, although there's 5 or 6 great cuts on that album as well. But I don't think it sells as well as an album when you listen to it as an album as those others that I just mentioned. And then later, after, you had Tug of War. All right, you had the near perfect album of Flowers in the Dirt. Many of you feel that Chaos and Creation in the Backyard is one of his greatest albums. I'll say Memory Almost Full. It was fantastic. New is okay. Egypt, I don't know. It's okay too. But there is a definite, and he's coming up with a brand new album this year, and I hope to God he can pull it off. And I'm even talking about albums where I'm willing to listen to his voice being in disrepair. Okay, I'm okay with that. All right, that's where he is now. But it's the songs, it's always going to be the material, and I'm hoping he can pull one off because it's been a while since he pulled off an outright masterpiece, but he has done so several times in his career. For example, not quite a masterpiece, but I would give it a 4-star rating, and not any of you are going to agree with me, but I think Press to Play is a wonderful freaking album. And people who have been covering that, they never mention the song Footprints. God, what an amazing song that is. Hillman. Oh, I love that last song. Anger. Ah, God, great stuff. Great stuff. I loved it. But most people think that's him kind of in the dumps. And then some people think that Off the Ground is this amazing album, and I don't agree with them on that. It's got some great stuff. As a matter of fact, Biker Like an Icon is one of my favorite McCartney albums. Man, talk about Get Back 2, you know. I mean, that's Get Back version B. Biker Like an Icon's a great rocker. And so even on his lesser albums, you've got tons of great material. And he's continued to keep that going. And even before John Lennon's death, for 5 years, he kept it going while John did nothing. And yet, after John dies, he gets this publicity, black eye by all his critics, and I blame mainly Beatle fans who are primarily John fans after the Beatles for that kind of viewpoint, you know. And it has done more harm to him over the years. That's why I like this brand new documentary. He allows a lot of criticism from former band members right in the documentary. He's still covering some stuff up. I talked about that specifically in my last stream. He's still covering a bit up. There's no doubt about it. But he is at least kind of let his, more than ever anyway, laid his soul bare. All right. Kimberly, are you getting anything? Anybody saying anything fantastic in the comments regarding what they think about McCartney, how he's been treated?
Well, Donna the Frank says, I wish Paul's new LP coming out was a full band LP and not another McCartney 1, 2, 3, 4 LP, since he's playing everything on it again. Never crazy about his drumming or the use of drum machines.
Yeah, I'm not crazy at the use of drum machines. I think McCartney, too, was half genius and half fluff. McCartney 3 is... There's a lot of composition in it, but it just in the end doesn't sell me at all. Now, but as a drummer, I like his drumming. I got to say that, Frank. As a matter of fact, Band on the Run, everybody goes, well, I hope it's just not him. Band on the Run, the vast majority of the instruments were played by Paul on that record. So not quite everything, but the vast majority. I mean, he could have taken off Denny's tracks and Linda's tracks and re-recorded them. Wouldn't taken too long, you know. So he's responsible for a lot of the music on there. He was a fine drummer with the Beatles on the 2 tracks I'm aware that he was doing. I like his drumming. Is he as good as Ringo? No way. But he's a fine drummer, and he's a compositional drummer, which I like. Leaves plenty of room for the vocals and everything, knows how to lay that down. So I would agree with that. Anybody else, babe?
Well, Brian Howard says, Michael, I take it you don't like Jann Wenner. At least he gave us a good music magazine. Same with Lester Bangs and Cream.
Yeah. Lester Bangs is a hero. Loved him. And didn't he, for a short time, also write for Rolling Stone? I used to love Rolling Stone, but when it became a geopolitical rag, I started, walking away from that, Brian, a bit. I liked it when it, I used to buy it when it came out like a newspaper. It wasn't a magazine. It was a newspaper that they folded in half, and it was free. You could pick it up and yeah, you know, and then it got, then it was money, and I bought it throughout the '70s. About halfway through the '80s, I started seeing where the lay of the land was, and not that I needed to wait that late. The lay of the land was always there. But in the mid '80s, I had enough grit under my own belt and attitude and life experience that I'm going, well, okay, maybe this isn't the magazine for me, So, and their embracing of all sorts of music and everything, that's fine if that's what you want, but I don't see it as a rock and roll magazine anymore at all. And it used to be that, exactly that, a rock and roll magazine. And it would go further than just rock and roll, but they'd always anchor themselves back to rock and roll, and they don't do that at all anymore. Whatever sells is what's in that magazine, or whatever they perceive to sell is, and aren't they just online these days, or can you still even get that thing as a actual magazine? I've not seen it anywhere that I could buy it, But anyway, and no, I'm not a fan of him.
Carly Koppel of Savaca said, when you have the Boston Bomber on the cover of Rolling Stone, it's become a rag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just take a look at, I don't want to go there. We could do a Rolling Stone that's a whole stream right there, as far as when they went. And I'd have to go and do some research and get my memory clear as to, I remember that interview. I was still buying that. It got to the point where I'd buy their special issues for a long time. Let's see, when we were on Middle Lincoln, where was that?
Yeah.
What years was that? That was probably 2001 to 2005. I would collect like special editions of them, maybe one or two after that, but by 2010, I had lost all interest in it. It's just not, I see Rolling Stone and it's like, oh, arsenic,
Yeah.
And I consider Jann Wenner one of the big bad guys in rock and roll. I see Phil Spector as one of the big bad guys in rock and roll. And I see Alan Klein. And each one of them have their sticky fingers in this. And that gets to the final part. Has this hurt Paul McCartney's legacy? I think that Paul McCartney, has done enough to hurt his own legacy, first of all. His continuing to tour with a voice in such disrepair isn't going to wear well after he's long gone, and nobody's going to be playing, even if they put them out as DVDs and everything. I don't think a lot of people will be playing those long into the future. I think his better concerts are behind him. Would I go see him? No, I wouldn't. I've paid to see him 3 times now. And that'll have to be it. He doesn't have enough to offer me, and a brand new album that I would love to go and hear live, even with his voice in disrepair, unless he releases this album this year and creates yet another, because if there's a man who's ever been known to rise from his own freaking ashes, it's got to be Paul McCartney. Does he have one more miracle left in him, folks?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
Right? Many would have written him off after Chaos and Creation. Matter of fact, many wrote him off with the Driving Rain album. That's it. He's lost it. Sayonara. He lost a lot of people. You get an album that gets that big of a black eye, you lose sales on your next album. You lose people who are not going to come back even if they read an article, oh, this one's much better now. It's like, no, once bitten, twice shy. You're going to have to prove that 2 or 3 albums in a row again to get my interest in again. And he's not been able to do that, to get that many albums in a row. Since then, and of course you got to understand, in the 2000s he's done more touring than releasing albums, which is like the hourglass portion of the entire figure, when he used to do more albums than he did touring. And
He's just driven. You know, music is his
Yeah.
life, and he's driven.
well, that documentary brought up, they said you're a workaholic. And
Yeah,
he says, no,
he can't
'cause,
help it.
Actually, what I do is I get in the studio and I play. I'm a musician. I play.
Yeah.
He says I'm a playaholic.
Yep.
You know,
That's
but he
it.
admits whatever a holic he is, and he has the need to explore new styles of music, different chordal approaches than he ever did before, and sometimes that works for him, like in the case of Footprints, and sometimes it doesn't, like several tracks on Egypt Stations album, which is not a bad album, by the way. That's not a bad album. It's like New. There's some good stuff on it, man. If I could take half of New and half of Egypt, you'd have a great album at least right there. But it's half a great album. And it's been a long time. And I know, I've said this many times on this channel, we all have a shelf life, folks. Even you and me. All right, we can only do what we do for so long. There will come a time when we will either get too old to do it, or we will pass away before we got too old to do it. It's kind of like what happens in life, right? And so when you think about Paul McCartney and all of this kind of coming up, and the word legacy, Paul McCartney's legacy, if he were to pass away tonight, heaven forbid it, we would get much the same thing, and I fully expect it to happen if I'm still around myself,
Michael.
that
stop
we
that.
got with Jann Wenner. There will be this praise period where Paul could do no wrong. I just gave you lots of examples, taking Paul's side for the most part tonight, all right, of where he's been a real doo-doo breath kind of a guy. All right, so we'll get that, and there'll be a lessening maybe with the Lennons. Oh, you'll have your Lennon fans out there reluctant, you know. Oh, what's all this shit? You'll even get streams. Yeah, what's this big deal? He died. All right, well, so what's the big deal? Well, the big deal will be, young men, when you make that stream in the future, watch me tell the future, folks, right here, is that he got 46 more years, at least up until now, to produce music than his equal, genius songwriting partner, John Lennon.
I know, huh?
Right?
Boy.
So what does that do to his output?
Yeah, but you know he feels the absence.
Of course he does.
You know he does.
I talked about
yeah.
how he'll actually cry
Yep.
when he does Here Today live. I just saw an article where they say, I bet Paul McCartney thinks of John Lennon every single day of his life. I would imagine he does. How could he not? You know? And by everything out of Paul McCartney's mouth, for the vast part of the story, is he loved John Lennon. He respected John Lennon, even back when John wasn't respecting him at all, calling his stuff substandard that later generations said, you don't know what you're talking about, Willis. The McCartney album is now seen as rock's very first alt-rock album / lo-fi produced album. McCartney invented that. While the Beatles were breaking up. Ram gets nothing but praises these days, and yet for the first 20 or 30 years in the history of that album, I had to endure every moron that I met that said that was a sucky poo album. What a bunch of light
Oh no, Ram
tripe.
was great.
You know?
Kidding? Yeah.
Oh, the crap I endured, baby.
I know.
You know?
I know.
And now, in my old dotage, I can claim a victory. The assholes didn't know what they were talking about. And that's before Wings. And then everybody cuts down Wings Wildlife, which is a great album. He was trying to do what Bob Dylan was doing. On the moment, spur of the moment, get back to the country, turn on the recorder, and don't pay too much attention to the levels or panning or anything like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, Love is Strange. You know? Wildlife. I mean, let's just do it. As an album recorded like that, it's a great album. Red Rose Speedway would have been better served if it had stayed a double album. We just recently got the version that would have been there. And of course, if he had really done that, then those live versions may have actually been re-recorded in the studio proper. Think of the Red Rose Speedway we could have gotten. As it is, it's a half good album and a half not so great, especially the whole thing with Loop the Indian and all that nonsense on side 2. However, Single Pigeon has got to be one of my very favorite Paul McCartney songs of all time. And what is it, 1.5 minutes long? I forget. Of course, he continued with Band on the Run, Venus and Mars, Speed of Sound, a live album that entailed all of that, along with London Town, and you've got, after that, you've got Back to the Egg, Tug of War, Pipes of Peace, and then I start losing track. What's next? Press to Play, I believe. Press to Play. Then he did one connected to the movie, with a couple of new tracks on it. I didn't care for that at all. Won't be looking to get that one. Those were very B Paul McCartney songs on that album, right? And then, you know, when he decided to come back touring, stayed away from touring because he was scared for his life. After all, Beetle heads were being hunted. He finally got over that, came back touring. I saw him on that second tour. God, that was a great show. Nowhere near the seat I had for the Cow Palace in 1976, where I sat at his freaking feet. I could have talked to the guy if it wasn't for the volume of the PA. We could have had a conversation. That's how close I was. Now, in Berkeley, he looked about that big, and even on the, 6-story visual monitors in front of me, they were so far away that they looked like I was holding an iPhone just to watch those at arm's length. I then paid, I didn't get to see him the third time, but my son did and said it was fabulous. And I paid for extra, and the last time I ever paid extra for a ticket, and that to see him again. He said he was fantastic then. He still had his voice. After that, I started hearing the disrepair, and there was no need for me to see him live anymore. I had already seen him at his best. Yeah, baby.
Oh, I was just, Donna the Frank wrote, have you ever heard Run Devil Run? An amazing LP of covers by Paul.
Yeah, I have.
It's in his top 10 McCartney LPs, even though it's covers.
Right. I like it.
Woo.
Yeah, I liked it. Remember, I played that thing to death when that came out.
That's right, yeah.
And I had that in the front room. Our daughter liked it. Brown-eyed handsome man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian
David
Howard.
Gilmour playing guitar.
For
them, a lot of that was based on a special gig he had at the Cavern, if you could call it really the Cavern. I think it was the rebuilt Cavern that's actually set off a bit, but it's in the vicinity. And he had several great, Was that Ian? Was Ian on drums from Purple on that show? But great covers album. If you're going to do a covers album, and it was important because see, Paul had just lost Linda, and they said for a year to 2 years, he just bawled his eyes out, couldn't think of doing anything, and when he finally got his groove back, it could start going. Well, there is a tomorrow to my life, and he went back to his basics, brother. That's what he did with that. And it was important to connect to the music that turned him on, that made him love rock and roll anyway. It was a healing bandage. And if you guys haven't seen the video on that gig, you really ought to go watch it because it's fantastic. It's fantastic. You see Paul trying his best to find joy again because he had lost all joy losing Linda.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know, it tore him apart. And Paul isn't the one, so he goes into seclusion. He's not a man to let you see him cry.
No,
that's just not a thing he does easily.
It
Even
took
though he's
his
got
soul
the
away.
over the years he had the cutest face, and he's Mr. Macca and says all the right things. You'd think he'd be cheeky, and let me express my emotions, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's just another guy. It's like when you and I watch The Green Mile.
Oh, love that movie.
And I have to excuse myself. I need to go use the restroom, baby.
It makes you cry. I know.
Grab the Kleenex,
A storm cop is asking me, when did Linda pass away?
Well, that was between 97 and 99, wasn't it? I think Linda passed away.
I'm not sure exactly what year, but I think
Linda
you're right.
McCartney passed away. It's not going to do it.
Just a minute.
Yeah. Linda McCartney passed away. Let's see if we can get it this way. Yeah. I don't know why I think as early as 97. 98, April 17th, 1998. Oh, and there's another one. I always forget to mention this album. One of the worst covers Paul ever put out, album covers, folks. But just before this 1998 time period.
1998, yeah.
Paul put out another masterpiece that I always forget to put out, and that or to mention. That's Flaming Pie. Okay, that's a freaking masterpiece. And while he was recording it, he even went special love song on there for Linda. And she was in a store. He wrote it while he was in the car.
Yeah.
A wonderful ballad tribute to Ringo Starr's ex-wife Maureen, because she had passed away in a song, Little Willow, to her children. Don't tell me this man couldn't write some of the best lyrics on the planet. As a matter of fact, I had an article here. Let me see if I've got it on my notes right here. Where was that? Yeah, because there was an article on UCR, the top 10 McCartney Beatle lyrics. Now, I wouldn't say these are my top 10, but they do prove my point, because a lot of people say, well, McCartney's the tunesmith, Lennon is the wordsmith, and while there may be a hint of truth to that, make no mistake, McCartney could write lyrics as well as Lennon. The song Yesterday, especially how young he was when he wrote that song, he dreamed it. That's wisdom that comes from a 75, 80-year-old man regarding. And is it? A lot of people thought, oh, it's a love song. Is it really? Or is it just lamenting yesterday, and that this relationship hinted at is what gears you into thinking about life in that sense to begin with? How about I'll Follow the Sun? All right? One day you'll look and it's found I'm gone, you know? Michelle. All right? Michelle. I mean, going to the point of getting it into the French language or making it in, as far as just absolutely wonderful song, right? I don't know if that'd be in my top 10 as far as his best lyrics, but it's a good song. Helter Skelter, I don't think I would be in the top 10 of my lyrics, but it's certainly an amazing track, right? But I'm so far, I'm so high, I'm miles above you. You know, proving that he could turn a quip as good as John Lennon. Fool on the Hill, amazing, right? Amazing lyrics. Blackbird, Hey Jude, the movement you need is on your shoulder. Well, I'm going to get rid of that, John. I like how you will, Paul. That's the lyric of the whole song that makes it, you know, that makes it worth its while. And then the end. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. So you can't just sit here and make base assumptions, although there is truth that maybe John was up to the lyrical bat a little more often than Paul, and Paul was up to the melodic bat a little bit better than John, especially those in the later days, because his stuff would be being picked as more safe, successful hits over John by not only just Paul and John, but the team in general. We're starting to favor McCartney's hits there at the end. A whole lot of them were coming out as McCartney songs there at the end. John complaining he couldn't get a song on to save his life, right? But Paul was in a whirlwind of creativity at that point, and John wasn't. It's not that Paul got better at that point. It's a point that John needed a break. He was walking away. He was still writing amazing stuff, but he just couldn't keep up with the machine that Paul sometimes finds himself in. And Paul finds a groove, and he wears that groove to the end, and then he starts trying to find another groove. I know, I'm kind of like that myself. I recognize that. I put my same kind of energy that Paul puts into his music as I do into my channel. And I try to put my best foot forward, just like Paul. I failed a couple of times tonight with my language. But I try to put myself in a better light and try to reason my belief systems and everything regarding rock and roll and all of that, right?
Storm Cop says, to me, it seems like there were times when ego got in the way of Paul and John. Mm-hmm. But that's just my opinion, he says.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, not everything that the ex-Beatles had to say. See, all of them hated McCartney. I tried to look out to see if what Lennon and Harrison had to say about Ram. It wasn't so much that it was a bad album. I didn't hear too much from Harrison. With John, as much as what was being hinted at, that seemed to bug him more than him saying, and on top of it was a bad album, right? And then you've also got, but Ringo came out and said that he thought Paul could do much better than Ram. So, and Ram has pretty much been vindicated by both fans and critics alike. So I don't know. Where do you go with that? But there was a lot of ego being driven. John and Paul have both said that, yeah, I better get home because I know Paul will probably write the second verse to his latest hit as he's driving home. You know?
Yeah.
And there was a lot, and George, God, we haven't even talked about George tonight. We could do a whole stream on George's life.
Oh, George.
And we'll do a stream on
wonderful.
John. And we'll do a stream with George and Ringo before it's over. Tonight, it was kind of like Paul's turn, mainly because of this article I read, and the fact that he's had the biggest black eye to contend with out of any ex-Beatle whatsoever. He's received the most criticism, the most negative comments than any other ex-Beatle, and I think it's a shame. But you watch all the hypocrites come out the day that man passes away. Could do no wrong. He could do no wrong. Well, I love this, I love that, I love this, I love that. Start burying all their older videos on what they thought about the guy. You watch it. If I'm still not around and some other YouTube channels out there talking about it, when it happens, I guarantee you, I can tell the future, you know? They'll do to him what they did to John Lennon. And neither one of the men warrant that kind of sainthood. Or they both warrant it, but recognizing that these saints of music had their problems, their cliques to their personalities. They could lie, they could cheat, they could steal, sleep on each other's wives, George Harrison. Right? It didn't matter. They could be shitty little human beings, but what makes the Beatles great is despite that, and a touch of genius by four excellent musicians. I'm tired of hearing people say that the Beatles weren't that great as musicians. Go back to school. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes explaining to you why that's not true. Amazing singers, amazing songwriters. One of them, you had two amazing songwriters that nobody had ever seen. They rewrote how pop music would continue once Lennon and McCartney were on the scene. And then you've got little brother George in there going, well, if Paul and John couldn't do it. A band that was so blessed with a Lennon and McCartney, they didn't need, as far as song input, anything from Ringo or George. They were still going to go down in the history books. And George comes out of the left field. Don't Bother Me. He hated that song. I love that song. And that early of a song on that early of an album makes that one of the best songs on the freaking album. And he just got better and better and better. Pretty soon, we've got Taxman. You know? I'm Only Sleeping. Or, no, that's Lennon's. What's the other? I'm trying to remember. I Want to Tell You is what I was thinking of. Right? My Guitar Gently Weeps. Here Comes the Sun. Something. And another song that should have been on the White Album, Not Guilty. And the wonderful, my favorite cut on Sgt. Pepper's, and nobody agrees with me, Within You, Without You. That song has been translated by other bands.
Heaven is a Place on Earth.
It's amazing. Yeah, I love that whole thought.
Yeah, Storm Cop said. Yeah.
So what you make of it. And I think Paul knows. Paul knows. I mean, he openly admits to getting angry. He openly admits to being fearful in this new documentary. So as he's gotten older, he's less guarded. There's no doubt about it. If you haven't seen the documentary, you got to go out and see it.
Good for him.
Good
for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's coming there. He's contemplating his own mortality. Not that he hasn't before, but as he's gotten older, he goes, hey, they had a point, even though he doesn't say it. That's my one criticism, Yeah, when you put it out there, both Henry McCulloch and Denny Sewell saying, we aren't getting any money. He promised money. We didn't get money. We needed money. And Paul goes, well, I wasn't really paying that close to attention with bookkeeping in those days. That's his only excuse, right? It's like, yeah, okay, that's letting yourself off the hook. Probably just should have come out and said, yeah, I'm going to cut those guys, each of them that's still living and their families, $1 million check. It'd still be a billionaire,
Sweet Lord.
But, he's a businessman, one of the best. And that's what we got with Paul that maybe we didn't get with the other three Beatles. One of the best businessmen. He is John even said this in one of his last interviews. I don't know, when it's all over, maybe Paul will wind up with more piles of gold than the rest of us, but that's not what it's all about. And that's fine. But if Paul has earned all of that the hard way,
The honest way, yeah.
The honest way, providing bang for the buck, or at least the attempt to do so. And when he didn't provide that bang for the buck, sales lapsed.
Yep.
Not a bad freaking career. I can't think of another rock and roll soul alive that did it like Paul McCartney. Not Elvis. I don't care what you say. Not Elvis. I could compare Elvis and Paul McCartney, career beginning to career end, all right, or to current for Paul. Nobody's done what Paul McCartney's done. John Lennon had a shot at it, but he was murdered by a bastard
Oh my God.
that we
yeah.
still feed
What
to
a-
this
what a-
very
what a-
day.
What a way to have to go out.
What a waste of space.
Such a genius artist to
Yeah.
just to be killed like that.
Yeah, no, and everybody remembers where they were when John Lennon died. And
It was a shock.
yeah,
It was a shock.
and to this day on his birthday, hundreds of thousands are there at Strawberry Fields in New York City, or tens of thousands, certainly. I've seen videos on it every time, He's got his major fans. He's got fans that are both major fans of him and Yoko. That's where I divert a little bit, but I love John Lennon. I loved his solo output.
Yeah.
And he could write a clinker here or there, but then I could mention
So could Paul.
clinker Paul
Yeah.
songs that I don't care for too.
Yeah.
A couple of them come to mind off the ground. And it's like, come on, Paul, you're not some aging hippie in the woods by a firelight. Stop it. But those days are done. The last time you were really doing that, you were out at the Scottish farm with Linda, shearing sheep, learning to sit a horse, and writing songs in your garden while your kids played in the lumber mill. That's the last time you were some hippie by the fireside, man. Not in the mid-'90s with Off the Ground. Got news for you, brother. Or at least that's when I got connected to that. I don't recall the year it came off. That was the first album he ever put out that I went, well, and a little bit Pipes of Peace, too. Yeah, those two is like, damn. You miss the boat, because I'm a pretty devoted fan, and even I don't want to go down this road, right? But name a rocker that hasn't done that. On many occasions, if you think about it. All right, folks, that about covers what I wanted to say about this. I wanted to kind of, get into, McCartney's life, clarify a few things. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is this thing that's getting a lot of attention now. And I do want to wrap this up by saying this. You've got Eric Clapton in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 3 times. Paul McCartney needs to be put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for his work with Wings. And I think while we're at it, John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band. And if there isn't enough room, just knock off Missy Elliott and Dolly Parton's trophies there out of your trophy case there in the main hall, and place John Lennon and Paul McCartney in there so that each one of them can be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 3 times, because they deserve it. And in a few years, get George in there as well. All right, folks. He's... The Wheelberries, are they in? Folks, are the Wheelberries in? I doubt it. They're too cool to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know they can't be in, right? I'm sure they're not. Is anybody still alive out there? Let me see. Everybody's going, good night, tribe. All right, Doc. Yeah. All right. But anyway. Okay, folks. You know what? I'll see you on Sunday at 5. And I don't know what Royce has got going there. I've got a couple ideas on a stream. I'm going to keep my punchier streams on Sunday so I can get in, get out, right? And then the ones that require a little more breathing time and everything, I'll rely here on Wednesday nights. Let me know how these time zones are working out for you folks. these days and everything. I need to hear from that. If looks like we got 62 thumbs up, so that's a great amount. I know we had a big audience tonight, not our largest, but fairly good. We're seeing some increase in that. If you're watching this later, okay, give us a thumbs up. Right now, we are 38 away, and we'll get another push. That means my thumbnail will show up on somebody's home feed and go, who's this guy? And he can click. The tribe grows. The sooner we can get past this, if you haven't subscribed, do so now. We could really use you right now. We were at 47,300, and I forget how many. I mentioned it at the beginning because it was still fresh in my mind. But 300 plus, and then they just took a whole slew out in an hour just before I came up. I was showing it to Kimberly off camera. So anything you can do to help there, check to make sure you're still subscribed, right? If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the tribe and all of that. I love each and every one of you. I hope all of you are experiencing blessings right now. If you're going through a tough time, as I know several of you are, our prayers, our thoughts go out to you. And if you showed up to watch this, some of you have even said, I come to your streams, it's almost like therapy to me, you know. Realize that if we didn't get to talk to a whole bunch of you tonight, there was a whole lot to cover, that this group of people you see here, they all kind of know each other now. You know, they're not next door neighbors. Many of them have never met, but they're friends of each other right here on the Tribal Forum. And tonight's been Tribal Forum 115. I'll see you on 116 on Sunday at 5. All right, folks. Baby, anything else you want to bring up?
Oh, just prayers to Dr. Rick and to all our members,
Right.
actually.
He was one of 4 or 5 that came to my mind right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you are going through tough times.
Yeah.
I know that James Stormcop went through a lot of tough times. I'm hoping things are settling down for him more and more. At least he's had some and fulfilled some happy memories.
Yeah, he had to check out a little early because
That's okay.
he just got news that his brother-in-law has cancer. So
Oh, bro.
yeah.
See, okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, we have a lot of people in our prayers.
Yeah, we do. And I pray for each and every one of you. And to some of you, that doesn't mean shit. And I understand that. But good thoughts to all certainly can't hurt. And we do care for you folks.
Oh, my goodness. Joseph
I was
Blue.
As soon as I saw it, I
Joseph
go, if
Blue
I don't
just
see
came
Joseph
in.
Blue,
Oh, Joseph,
I'm going to
thank
be
you.
very, very disappointed.
He says the Beatles forever
Ah.
and ever and ever.
Amen to that, Joseph.
Yeah,
and he comes
thank
in
you,
at the
Joseph.
last second, as he often does, throwing a deuce hammer.
Yes, he did.
Amazing. Royce, so good to see you out there. Thanks. All of you who have supported. Was Dan in tonight? I know Dan's been real busy. But hope all of you are doing well. And I'll see you on Sunday. If not before, I may be shooting a video here tomorrow. Okay? All right, folks. I'll see you on Sunday. If not tomorrow or the next day with a regular video. Good night.
Good night.
She says good night.